I'm going to move from here right on to what are called the principles of good industrial relations practice. Some of these are going to be pretty obvious, but for example, this one, employment policies should exist, rules and regulations should exist in writing and should be made known to management and employees. I want to just take a little aside here for a minute, because there's something about the way people learn that a lot of people don't understand. I think that we tend to assume that because you have read something that you understood it. Assuming that all your employees are literate and can read, which is an assumption that you can't always make. I've heard supervisors over and over again say, but what's the matter? What do you mean you didn't know? It's there in black and white. It's in the rules, it's there in black and white, it's up on the bulletin board. And we assume that because the rule exists and it exists in writing, that people know about it. But not all adults learn like that. Not all anybody learns like that. There are different ways in which people learn. One is by visual, one is by auditory, one is by reading and writing, and one is kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is by doing. The principles of good industrial relations practice, or good employee relations practice as they're also known, are based on the principles that have been hammered out through years of work at the International Labour Organization amongst governments, trade unions and employers. They're also based on the rules of natural justice and on case law and decisions that have been made by industrial courts and tribunals over the years throughout the Caribbean. The importance of knowing what these principles and practices are is to avoid problems from arising, because when they are not observed and a dispute arises, it will be on the basis of whether or not these were observed that judgments and decisions will be taken by industrial courts and tribunals. These can be very expensive, both in terms of money and in terms of morale within an organization. So it is important that we know what they are and that they are observed. The first of these, and perhaps the most obvious, is that employment rules and policies and practices should be made known to employers, to managers, to employees, and that they should exist in writing where people can make reference to them. It's not enough that they exist in writing, they must also be explained, because not everybody learns best through reading and writing. Some people learn best through the use of discussion and debate. But it's particularly important for new employees or for first-time employees who have never worked before. You cannot assume that people know without being told what the rules of an organization are. Going into a new organization, like going into a new family or a new country, implies a different culture, different rules, and people have to be explicitly told what these rules are so that they won't inadvertently breach them. That is the first principle of good industrial relations practice, and one which is frequently evoked in disputes. The second principle, which is equally important, and failure to observe it has perhaps ended up with more decisions being made against employers than any other, is the principle that anyone who is accused of breaching a rule